Greetings. For AP Biology or College Biology, we're going to be focusing in on Unit 2, Cell Structure and Function, Section 2.4, Plasma Membranes. Please note the disclaimer listed below, and let's get started. Now let's talk about the plasma membrane. If you remember when we talked about parts of the cell, the plasma membrane is what holds the inside stuff from the outside stuff. So oftentimes cells are in your body and the plasma membrane provides a barrier from things like the cytosol, which is inside, from the outside. And if you remember, we previously stated, let's say that the inside of the cell is you in your room and you want to ensure that maybe your brother doesn't come inside the room, but maybe you have another sibling that you want to come inside the room, but one of the two you don't want to come inside the room. You are selectively permeable based on what personnel you want to come in and out of the room. So that's the same way the cell works. The cell only wants to allow certain things to come in and outside of the cell. So the plasma membrane will provide this barrier to ensure that only items that are necessary to come inside or outside the cell. So enter or exit the cell accordingly. So when we talked about the plasma membrane in general, remember we said that if we were to take a slice, it looks like this, in the sense that you have both the sides of the plasma membrane, which is facing outside the cell or internally, it's considered hydrophilic, which means water loving. Whereas on the inside internally, that's called hydrophobic or water fearing. And that gives the ability for the cell, specifically the plasma membrane, to be selectively permeable. If we were to zoom in on the phospholipid, we would notice that we have this shape here, which is what it's comprised of, where the hydrophilic and hydrophobic tail, basically the tail is a fatty acid, and then the head of the phospholipid is going to be phosphate. So you have a phosphate head and then fatty acid tail. And a bunch of them comprised together make the phospholipid bilayer itself. Let's talk about the fluid mosaic model. The fluid mosaic model is a term used to describe the phospholipid bilayer. The thing is, with the phospholipid bilayer, if you remember, cells are constantly changing in size. That means that they have to grow to accommodate for the waste and nutrient exchange. So they grow and they shrink and they grow and they shrink, depending on what's happening within the cell. Because of this, the membrane itself has to be very fluid, and that allows for the cell itself to move accordingly. Now, we do know that the phospholipid bilayer is embedded with different membranes of protein. So the membrane itself has these different proteins that exist, and we're going to talk about that in a brief second. And this allows for things to come in and out of the cell. So let's talk about the fluid mosaic model itself and what you're expected to know and understand within the fluid mosaic model and what it has. So the first thing is I'm going to jump right here to this pink item, which is cholesterol. And if you remember what cholesterol is a lipid. So there are cholesterol or steroids that are embedded throughout the phospholipid bilayer. Also, as well, when we have the phospholipid bilayer, we note that the phospholipid bilayer also has on the outside a glycolipid. So the glycolipid is, if you zoom in, is this structure right here. And if you zoom in even further, you'll notice that it is a 6-ring structure that we see here. And the 6-ring structure, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, if you remember from the macromolecules section, often it reciprocates or looks like a carbohydrate. So when we're talking about these structures here, we're actually talking about carbohydrates that are attaching to the phospholipid, which allows it to be called a glycolipid because it's a six-ring structure. If you remember, glucose, galactose, and then glycogen, these are all different types of carbs. And glycogen, the root is glyco, like glycolipid. And then remember, it's attached to a lipid, so that's why it's called glycolipid. It is a carbohydrate attached to a lipid. And that's how you can remember that functionality of what a glycolipid is. Now, a glycoprotein has the same structure in terms of the carb, but it's attached to this glue-like thing instead, which is a protein, and therefore it's considered a glycoprotein. So if you have a carb that's attached to this blue-like structure, that's called a glycoprotein. If you see a carb attached to the outside external surface or somewhere internally without a protein attached to it, that's called a glycolipid. Now, let's move down here to the different types of proteins. These blue structures here are different types of proteins that are constantly found in the phospholipid bilayer. If the protein goes from end to end, it's called an integral membrane protein. If it has an opening, it's called a channel protein. And the channel protein is interesting because it allows certain particles, depending on what it is, to come in and out. And that's why it's called a channel protein because it has a tube-like feature to allow certain things to come in and other things to not come in. And then we have lastly a peripheral membrane protein, which basically means that it doesn't go end to end and it doesn't have this hollow-like tube-like structure. Instead, it only resonates on either the internal or external side of the phospholipid bilayer. It is only on one side, and that's why it's called peripheral membrane protein. So now that we talked about the fluid mosaic model, let's talk about the different types of proteins that you can see within the phospholipid bilayer. We just talked about the channel proteins, which has a tube-like structure that allows certain items to go in and out, to move across the cell internally to externally or externally to internally. Doesn't matter. What you need to understand, it has a tube-like structure that allows very specific molecules or ions to move across. So it only allows certain things to go through. Then we have transport proteins. So transport proteins are working to ensure that they move items across the membrane itself. Then you have receptor proteins. So the receptor proteins are basically there's something on the outside that attaches to a receptor of the cell, and that is called a receptor protein, oftentimes associated with hormones. And then to go to the top here, we have adhesion proteins. So what happens is you have cell to cell, and they end up connecting together. They form these junctions, and they adhere to each other to allow for items to go from one cell to the next, and that's called an adhesion protein. So now we talked about adhesion proteins, receptor proteins, transport proteins, and channel proteins. Now we're going to talk more about membrane permeability, specifically with channel proteins, which is the picture that you see here. And what it's trying to tell us is that channel proteins are unique because they allow certain ions or certain items to go across the membrane. They're oftentimes small because that allows it to easily go across the membrane. However, if we need some sort of assistance, like it is charged or polar, then we would use some sort of transport protein to transfer it across the phospholipid bilayer. Now, water, for example, can cross in small quantities, but larger quantities will need some sort of transport protein assistance. So selective permeability is important in terms of understanding the plasma membrane. Now we're going to go through a quiz question. Take a moment and read the following question. Once you're done, please make sure to unpause your video. So make sure you pause while you're reading and then unpause This question should take no more than 60 seconds. Okay, now that you're done reading the question, let's try to go ahead and see if you got the correct answer. The correct answer is C. Question asks, cholesterol is a component of the plasma membrane. What is the primary function of the structure? Now, I understand we didn't really talk about it in detail, and that's okay. They don't expect that you'll understand that, but you will use the knowledge that you have from Unit 1 and Unit 2 and further units when you do take the actual exam to note what cholesterol is. We know what cholesterol is now. We know that it's a lipid, and that is based on our knowledge not only in this section, but in Unit 1. We know that it is a cosmic part of the plasma membrane, and we want to know what the primary function of the structure is. Now, if we talk about lipids in general, remember they come in two forms, solid and liquid. You want to think about something like butter versus oil. These are both different types of lipids, but they come in solid and liquid, depending on the carbon connectivity. And the thing is, for answer choice A and B, we know that cholesterol can fluctuate based on solid and being liquid based on the temperature. So the thing is, the function of cholesterol isn't going to be at all temperatures that they either increase the membrane fluidity or decrease the membrane fluidity. We know that it's just going to be same across the board. And because of this, we can eliminate B and we can eliminate A. We do know that cholesterol is there to help maintain fluidity to ensure that it can allow for certain items to come in and out. So compared to A, C would be a better choice. D in general to serve as a primary energy source is not quite the case. We do understand that cholesterol is a lipid. And if remember, we have carbohydrates, which also provide energy as well. So because of this, this would not be the best answer, leaving answer choice C with the additional information to help you understand. Please also note that when we're talking about any sort of multiple choice question for AP biology, we want to stay away from words that are extremes. In this case, in answer choice A and B, they use the word all. And in science, majority of the time, we think to ourselves, while we're solving an issue or a problem, we know that's not applicable to everything. So in terms of the new digital hybrid-based AP biology exam, just note that when they give words like all or always or every single time, those are extreme words, which we don't like in science. So oftentimes those answer choices can be eliminated. I hope this helps, guys. Make sure to subscribe, and we hope to see you back soon.
Hey, Geeking Out on STEM family, guess what? We want you to hit that subscribe button. Why? Because we'll be producing more content just like this for the AP Biology exam and the new digital SAT exam. By subscribing, you'll be getting exclusive, up-to-date tips, tricks, and secrets for both exams. Also, if you're a parent, a teacher, a homeschool instructor, or a student, you might be looking for affordable and exclusive digital products to help improve multiple choice questions, free response questions, or question bank questions related to both the digital SAT or AP Biology exam. We have them here. Make sure to check out our link tree in our bio for curated resources that you won't find anywhere else. These unique resources are designed to help you raise your score. By hitting the subscribe button, the more subscribers we get, by the way, the more videos we can make. So make sure to join our family to ensure that you get a perfect score for both exams. We can't wait to help you succeed.